stop me now, they won't stop me now, they won't stop me, no. They won't stop me now, they won't stop me now, they won't stop me, no.
Hello and welcome back to We Are Mighty. It's your girl, Mighty's mama, LaTanya, whatever you want to call me. Just don't call me out my name. Here, hoping that you had a mighty week, a mighty 2 weeks since the last episode. Hope that everything is going well for you. Hasn't been too bad for me. I've had what I call mighty moments over the last couple weeks. Just some, not triggers, but just memories, just things that made me think about my son, miss my son. But, you know, I could tell we're getting a little bit stronger because some things don't affect me like they used to. So I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit on this episode. And, you know, when you think about grief, the major reason that people grieve, I guess you could say, you think of the loss of a loved one when someone dies. And yes, that is probably the worst type of grief, the hardest type of grief to deal with. But that's not the only type of grief. You know, I've had conversations with people and they've actually said things to me related to, you know, yes, it's difficult to lose a loved one, but there's also this that is grief. There's also this type of grief that really affects people, and you don't hear about it very much. I knew someone who had a car that they loved and, you know, got to go pick it off of the showroom floor, had, I think, 11 miles on it, got to, you know, drive it for a while. And they had this car for like a couple months and realized that they didn't get any paperwork from the bank. They didn't think anything of it. They just, you know, enjoyed their car. They also had a long commute to work. And one day out of the blue, they get a call from the dealership to let them know that they couldn't get the loan approved. They've had this car for a couple of months now. It literally had 1,500 miles on it now. But they had to give the car back because they couldn't get that loan approved. And they literally loved this car. And after they gave that car back, anytime they saw that type of car, they would get choked up, or they would say, man, that reminds me of when I had that car, or that looks just like my car looked, and really would get upset. They were grieving over the loss of a car. And I know to some people that may be weird because it's something material, but that car was a goal for them. It was something that they really had set out, and they thought they had put all their ducks in a row and done everything that they were supposed to. They were making a good amount of money, but unfortunately, their credit wasn't where it needed to be. Now I blame the dealership because they shouldn't have allowed them to take the car. But to have it for a couple of months, to be so attached to it, and then to lose it like that, it took longer for them to get over the loss of the car than the few months that they had it. That's grief, believe it or not. I have a friend who, she and I worked at the same place, and she was there before me. She actually referred me and got me hired. And then some things changed in upper management, and out of nowhere, they let her go. It was kind of awkward for me to still be with the company after they had let her go. And I was still there for a few years after, you know, she was gone. And I would get promoted, and she would say things to me like, let me find out you still there getting promoted, and they let me go. That's a form of grief. She was hurt over losing that job. And I don't blame her, especially the way things happened, but that's a form of grief. She was grieving the loss of that job. And that's why I say, you grieve how you grieve. You don't know what can trigger you, because there's things still that could trigger where she may say something about that job and it's been years. But it's difficult when you think you're on a specific path. And it's the same with the loss of a loved one. You think you have so much time. You think you have these goals, or you have these dreams of things that you're going to do together. And then out of nowhere, the whole thing changes and they're snatched away from you. And you have to regroup. You have to figure out how to move forward. It's the same thing. And, I also mentioned previously how I lost my job from the same company after being there almost 5 years. Had a whole plan. I literally planned to retire. I got a promotion, was making the biggest salary I'd ever made in my career, went and got a new car, and everything was going well. And then out of the blue, I was let go. And I still have days where I think about that, where I get upset about that. I've had to figure out how to keep up the payments for this car, because if I have anything to say about it, I'm not losing this car. But I've had to figure out different avenues. I was unemployed for a few months, and it caused a lot of issues for me. Like my insurance changed, medications that I was on, I couldn't get approved. My health started to deteriorate, all because our company got bought out by a larger company and they just decided to make some changes, which didn't make sense, but hey, I'm not corporate. But I still, to this day, because it hasn't been that long ago, I still grieve losing that job. So when I say, you deal with your grief the way that you deal with it, it's not just the loved ones. Again, that's the hardest, I think. I'm sure it is. That's the hardest, though, when someone you love, especially as a parent, to lose a child. When it's a grandparent or someone who's lived a full life, it may not be as hard, but still, you're attached to that person. And it's difficult to let them go. Even if you knew it was coming, it's still difficult to let them go. I know of people who were to the point where they were at end of life and knew it, and they planned everything, planned their funeral with the family, but it was still hard for them to go through with it. You can never fully prepare for it. But it's like with grief, it's a pick your poison kind of thing. It's not just a death. It's dealing with a loss. And that loss can come in many different forms. And that loss can affect different people in many different ways. Now, the one that it seems that people have started to bring attention to more recently, and I think it's because lately there's been more focus on mental health, which I love, but there's more things that people are really internalizing and really thinking about how they affect their mental health. There is a type of grief that you don't hear about a lot, but it seems to be coming to the forefront, because I saw a Facebook post related to it. I was at a seminar a week ago, and a young lady mentioned this type of grief to me. So I'm going to give you a scenario. I had this coworker, and she was really cool. She and I just hit it off. Like from the start, we hit it off. We would have lunch together. We would, hang out on the weekends together because we became that close. So in a short period of time, but we just, we clicked. And I definitely could call her a friend, not just a coworker, not just an acquaintance. She was a friend of mine. And we went through life situations together. She had a baby, she had gone through a divorce. Like there was just a lot of things that we had experienced together. And like I said, we were close and we did a lot. And she started a new job. And at that new job, there was one of my family members who rode with her to work. They carpooled together. And it was a nice little commute. So apparently on this commute, this family member wasn't speaking very highly of me and was kind of getting into my friend's head about me and, telling her negative things about me. And she started to form this opinion of me. Now, here I am thinking that we are still, on great terms and still, I was actually the baby's godmother. So doing things for the baby, doing things for the family. She'd do things for my sons and we'd get together. But I could tell something was a little bit off with her. And there was a day where she, at the last minute, couldn't give my family member a ride to work. And it kind of put them in a bind. And they called me, needing a ride. I couldn't give them a ride. And I messaged her and was like, that's kind of messed up because now you got people who are relying on you. And there were other people who carpooled and you just kind of flaked on them and they're all scrambling trying to figure out how to get to work. And she just completely went off on me. And I'm trying to figure out, like, wait a minute, what just happened? This isn't just about this ride to work. There's something more going on here. And I remember trying to figure out, what's going on. And I'm like, it's all good. I was just saying, that's kind of messed up to leave them out here hanging to dry. But, you seem like you've got something else that you're trying to get off your chest. And I mean, she just laid into me and was basically calling me phony. And I'm trying to figure out, where is all of this coming from? Not knowing that this family member had been speaking negatively of me until she started saying specifics that I knew had to come from that family member. So now I'm starting to put two and two together, like, okay, these conversations on the road obviously at some point have come to me, and there's things that have been shared with her that are not positive. I guess that's the only way to put it. And, trying to figure out what this person said to her and why she's all of a sudden turning on me, and she stopped talking to me. Now, at this point, we've been friends for 5 years, and it was very difficult for me to not speak to her anymore. That type of grief, that friendship grief, when it's somebody that was like your ride or die, and you guys were everywhere together, and wherever that person was, they always saw you and vice versa. And then for it to just completely end, people don't talk about that friendship grief. It's real, it's deep, and it is difficult to deal with because it's the person who you probably shared everything with, the person who you went to when you had issues, the person who you would go to for advice, or when you were upset, they could calm you down. Now you're needing the advice or you're needing to be calmed down related to them. That is a type of grief that might be up there with losing a family member, because it is just like family. At least it is for me. And I know some other people. Like I said, there was a lady at a seminar last week who mentioned that to me. Like, a lot of people don't talk about that grief of losing a friendship. When it's a true friend, it's very difficult to deal with. And you have the same thing. You can have triggers. You can have, maybe there's a song that you guys used to love to ride to in the car. You hear that song, it doesn't sound the same. Things you used to do together, you have a difficult time doing them because that friendship is no longer there. Now, I have to say, years later, we did hash it out and, we were cool again, but it wasn't the way it was before. And that's unfortunate, but, life happens and things happen. I was glad to at least be able to bury the hatchet with her and to rekindle I guess you could say, an acquaintance, because we're not the friends that we used to be. I could still reach out to her if I needed to, but I guess that's the one thing about the friendship grief. You could possibly rekindle it. You can bury, the negativity and move forward with that. And I still think there's a level of grief that sticks with it because, again, it's not the same. It's not your ride or die like it used to be. It's in the back of your mind, you're worried what's going to be the next thing. What would make them snap again, so it's not the same. But that's a level of grief that a lot of people don't talk about. I had another friend who, it was the same thing. We were so close. We were so cool. Like, man, and this was a male friend. He was like my brother. It was, we were so we could finish each other's sentences and, laugh at the same things. We may not even say anything, look at each other and laugh. And then, something happened where he was upset about something and came to me asking me questions. And it happened to be a day that I had just gotten fired from a job. So I didn't even want to hear what he was coming at me with. It was like, you know what? You ain't got to come at me like this. And it became a spat. But we didn't talk for years. And I missed my brother. I really did. And it's weird how you can feel that way about someone that's not related to you, that's not blood. They're like blood as far as you consider it. But it's interesting that, that level of grief can be just like someone had died, because that friendship has died. And you have to grieve that friendship. And you go through the cycle just like you go through the cycle when someone dies. You have the anger, resentment, the lashing out. You go through all of the feelings. Although that person's still alive, that friendship has died. So I was thinking about, I know that I come here and I'm usually talking about the loss of my son. But I have said that, there are other forms of grief and we can discuss those as well. Losing my dog, I had to grieve losing my dog. That was my baby. I had him since he was 9 weeks old. He literally used to climb up and chew on my locks. That's how I chose that dog. So to have him from a baby and to be 4 years old and to get sick like he did, that hurt. Not everyone has lost family members. And for those who haven't, I'm happy for you, because it's something that I wouldn't wish on anyone. But we definitely deal with different types of grief. And with all of them, we have to figure out a way to move forward. Now, some, I'm sure we can move forward a little bit quicker than others. Losing the car, maybe you have to go to a buy here, pay here, find something nice and get another car. Now, you still may think in the back of your mind, man, I love that car. But you can eventually get past it. Maybe. Maybe you still set out to have that car in the future. But you can replace it. That's the difference between, losing the family member. They can't be replaced. But even with losing, a pet, you can't replace your pet. You may get another pet, but you can't replace them because, that personality is no longer with you. And, it's completely different. Even if you get the same breed or whatever, it's still not the same. The friendships, even if you start a friendship with somebody else, it's not going to be the same. That's the thing with those types of grief. You can at least move forward a little bit quicker than losing a person close to you, having someone die. But it doesn't make any type of grief more important than the other, because all of it can affect your mental health. Any type of grief can affect your mental health. It can affect your physical health if you hold on to it and hold it in. All of it needs to be dealt with. Again, see a therapist, write in a journal, however you decide to deal with it. Now, you may feel like, oh my gosh, that would be so weird to go to a therapist to tell them, I had this car and I love this car and I lost it. But sometimes there's something underlying. There's something else that car represents for you. And you may need to dive deeper into that. And that helps you with your mental health. There's symbolism. There's deeper meanings to a lot of things. I feel there's deeper meanings to the loss of a loved one. I haven't figured out what that is yet. I don't know if I want to figure out what that is, because it's hard enough just dealing with the surface of losing someone. But there's deeper meanings to everything. There's reasons behind it. And there's also a bright side somewhere. Something to look forward to. You just have to go through it, which of course is the hardest part. Going through that grief, going through that loss, even the material losses, even the friendship losses, going through it. Yes, it can be replaced, and I don't really like to use that word, but yes, you can recover from it to a certain degree, but it's not a quick fix. You're still going to have to go through the process of grieving it. And trying to replace it with someone else quickly may not be healthy, because you haven't dealt with your feelings of what has happened with the loss you just experienced. So don't think I'm not still grieving losing my son. Of course I am. I think about him every day. I have thoughts and triggers and things that come to mind every day, wishing he was still here. But I know that there are people dealing with different types, different levels, different stages of grief. And we all need someone who understands us. We all need someone who can let us know you're not necessarily going through it alone. And once you go through it, you can come out on the other side, hopefully a little better. Hopefully a little stronger. As the saying goes, you don't look like what you've been through. I just had someone say that to me a few days ago. Hey girl, how you doing? Honey, you don't look like what you've been through. And I guess I don't. I feel like I don't look the same. I don't smile the same or any of that. But I know that there are some things that you could see if I would allow it. And I'm just not that person. I'm trying to move forward. I'm trying to be positive. Now, in the back of my mind, in my head, I'm still dealing with depression. I'm still dealing with, the pain of my son not being here. I'm still going through court and all of that. But I don't want what I'm dealing with to bring anyone else down. So I choose to try to be positive. And when I'm behind closed doors is when, I may look like what I've been through. Honestly, I can't say I look like much of anything because I just want to go to bed, which isn't fair either, because I have family. I have a family who needs me. I have a husband. I have another son. I have a couple more sons. So I'm trying to do what I can. And this podcast is very therapeutic for me. I know everybody can't do it this way, but this is my outlet. And I so appreciate all of you who tune in, even if it's only one or two. Hopefully the one or two who tune in, it's helpful to you as well. And I'm trying not to depress you every time you tune into an episode. I'm trying to give you some kind of tidbits that will help you with your journey. And I just want to say thank you for joining. We're here every other Friday, everywhere you listen to podcasts, and you can view us on Spotify and YouTube. If you'd like to be a guest, if you have an idea for a topic, or if you just want to say, hey, how you doing? I hope everything's going well. Shoot me an email at wearemighty24@gmail.com. We also have our We Are Mighty Facebook page, and I have been seeing you guys interacting and following. I really appreciate it. I try to give you clips and little tidbits there as well. Like, share, follow. We're going to grow this thing. It might be slowly but surely, but that's good for me because I'm still getting used to being here. And remember, in all that you do, be true to yourself, be strong, and be mighty. We'll see you next time.
They won't stop me now, they won't stop me now, they won't stop me, no. They won't stop me now, they won't stop me now, they won't stop me, no.